I'm sure you've noticed, and I've been noticing as well, how much the cost on everything has gone up, whether that's housing, food, services for your home, cost of cars, all these different things have just gone up absolutely astronomically in the last 5 years or so. And it's putting a lot of strain on people's budgets. And so I wanted to talk about my number one tip for dealing with the high cost of everything and some kind of practical steps that you can take. So that's what we're going to cover in today's video. If you're new here, I'm Sarah Edens. Welcome. I'm a financial educator and consultant, and I'm so happy you're here. And hello to all my current subscribers. It's so nice to have you back. So let's talk about what is going on with this high cost of basically everything. The results are in from the FINRA Foundation's National Financial Capability Study, which has like a super long name, right? But it's basically a nationwide study that's been done every 3 years since 2009. So it collects data about all kinds of different things about how people are feeling about their money, how much they're spending in various areas. It's a cool study. I'll link to it in the description if you're into all the data and charts and so forth. Basically, it reinforced what we already knew, which is that people are getting squeezed by the high cost of everything, especially food prices, and that is leading to less savings. I'm sure less retirement planning as well, and just more general stress around money because food in particular is something that we cannot do without. And so just trying to make room in our budget for these new high cost of everything is really coming at a cost to everything else, including our sanity. So let me share with you the number one strategy that I would choose if I had to pick one to cope with that. And that is this: automate your spending and saving based on your priorities and not pressure. And here's why I feel like this is a really helpful thing that's going to make a difference for you. When you get your savings automated, by which I mean have money going directly from your paycheck to your 401k, have money going directly from your paycheck to savings, have money going directly from your paycheck to your retirement fund. Or if you don't want to have it set up so it's like a direct transfer, which studies have shown that's the absolute best way, is so that it's just out of sight, out of mind, and the money's already taken off the top and plugged in for your future self before you even see it. You can do it manually as well. I actually do it manually myself just because of the way that I am very, very, very hands-on with my finances. I'm in my accounts every single day. And so for me, it's a little bit like it's just as easy to just make the transfers when we get paid. But if you want to, you can just set it up so it auto transfers off. And then that way, what you're doing is you're making absolutely sure that even if it's small amounts, you are still putting money aside for your future self. Because what we're running into today is this pressure that we have right now where everything's costing more and our jobs are not paying us exponentially more money so that we can still all afford housing and food and gas and cars and all this stuff easily the way we did even 5-10 years ago. So it's very easy to let that squeeze on your budget squeeze out everything for your future self. And then you're basically pushing your future self off a financial cliff. And we don't want that. So it's something that I'm coping with right alongside with you, of feeling this really ultra high cost. And it's very stressful, especially when you're starting to see it at the grocery store. And if you're in an area where gas prices are also high, you may be feeling that as well. Or if you need to go out and buy a new car and you haven't bought one in 10 years, you're probably reeling from sticker shock. Just all these different things. It's a lot to keep up with mentally, and then also keeping up with it in your budget. So automation, anyway, first of all, it's been studied to be a very effective way to make sure that you always save and invest, because you don't have to make the decision to do it every single month. It just happens without you having to think about it. So it shifts the pressure off of yourself, and it's one less decision you have to make. It also reduces decision fatigue, like we said, so that you're not having to think about, should I put a little bit towards my savings, or should I put it towards something that I just feel like buying? You don't have to make that decision. And then it also forces clarity. So as you are making these small amounts off into your savings, off into your investment and retirement, it really helps you get clarity over then with the money that's left, what you really need to be spending on. Now, I don't want to sugarcoat this because I think the average American's household salary right now is somewhere in the ballpark of $67,000 to $68,000 a year. It is really tough if you're making $67,000 to $68,000 a year and you have anyone depending on you whatsoever, or even if it's just you. That is a challenging situation to be in. And so, like we said, jobs are not paying us a lot more, but then we're watching the cost of everything just absolutely gobble up our paychecks. And so it's helpful if you need to save a little bit less, save a little bit less. I don't want you starving yourself so that you've got a fantastic retirement plan. That's absolutely not the goal here, right? We've got to have balance, but really, really key to just get that clarity on what your goals are for yourself, and then make sure that you're taking small action. Even if you're not saving or investing as much as you used to, try to do a little bit, and then obviously try to keep up with your debt payments as much as possible and work with a debt counselor if debt is starting to drown you. I will link to some resources. There are actually some fantastic free debt counseling resources out there. So I will link to all of that in the description as well if debt is really starting to impact your mental health, impact your ability to just get through your day-to-day life. I'll link to that as well because it's a real issue for people at the moment. So here's a couple of ultra practical ways to make this happen. So like we said, you can automate your transfers to your savings and retirement accounts and just not have to think about it. You can also use a budgeting app. I really love budgeting. There are some financial advisors who are not hugely into budgeting. I'm not one of them. I've got a whole playlist about how to budget if you've never done it before. But it really is extremely helpful when you're feeling squeezed about money to have a really tight budget where you know exactly what's coming in and then what all your expenses are in terms of bills and things like that, and then how much you have that you're able to save, obviously, and then what you can spend on discretionary spending, fun money, and stuff like that, and try to have just that balance. So one of the best apps that I've heard about is Monarch. I haven't used it personally, but I've heard great things about it, so you could check that out if you like an app-based budget. Otherwise, I've got a video that I'll link to about how to budget in Excel if you like using spreadsheets. You can, like we said, any budget that works for you is the right budget. Just something that really helps you see then where your pain points are. Is it that you just do not have enough money coming in to meet your needs? And if so, that's something that you can start addressing in as many creative ways as you want to. You can look at starting a side business. You can look at getting a raise at work. You can look at upskilling and getting more skill and more training and so forth so that you qualify for a better trained job. I'm going to do a series and I'll link to it when it's out about how to level up your career with LinkedIn, which is amazing if you're really needing a job that pays more because your current job just won't support you in this economy in which we live. That's fine. And so maybe it's time to look for a new job and maybe a related industry, different industry. Maybe your employer's just not paying you very well. But just get creative about that so it can help you see if your real pain point is that you're just physically not making enough money. It can be maybe your pain point is there's a lot of money leaking out of your budget, all different directions to things that you don't really need to be paying for and you could probably do without. So it's just extremely helpful though, until you have the numbers either in a spreadsheet, in an app, on just paper with pen and paper with black and white. It's until you get a really clear view of your numbers, it's hard to tell like how bad the situation actually is. What I find is that in general, when people sit down and really get clarity on where they are with their finances, it's not necessarily as bad as what they're thinking. Even if they have debt, once they sit down and write down like car loan A, here's how much we have left on the car loan and here's the interest rate. Car loan B, mortgage and the interest rate, and just really track that. Sometimes it's not as bad as what you're thinking. Sometimes it's worse, right? So it just depends. But once you've gotten it down, you're just facing it. You're facing the facts, and you can just really stop letting your finances terrorize you if they've been doing that for a while, because I don't want that for you at all. And then when we were talking about leaks in the budget too, I'd really encourage you to cancel, pause, delete any services that are draining your budget, that are just not serving you, or are, just absolutely things you can live without. And I'm practicing what I preach here. I actually just canceled all my TV streaming services. So we're going to see how well this summer goes with no fun shows to watch. I imagine I'll probably get a lot more done, and I have mountains of books on self-help, finance, becoming a healthier version of myself, all of these great books that have just been stacking up that I see on LinkedIn or social media. And I'm like, I really want to sit down and read those, and I just haven't had the time because I've been watching TV. So I'm like, let me cancel my streaming services. That'll save me some money, and then I'll be able to actually get through all these books that I've bought. So that's my summer project for the moment. But just think about that in terms of your own situation. If there's areas that you can, even just save $15 or $20 a month. Some of these things cost more than you'd imagine for perhaps not providing a lot of value, or just being space fillers. They take up space in your time. And space in your day or your week, but they're not necessarily giving anything back to you. So just really kind of start to look for things like that in your budget as well. So is this a flashy suggestion about automating your savings, getting a budget, really nailed down, check for leaks, that kind of thing? No, I mean, it's not super flashy. It's not cool, but it's very, very effective. And it's definitely a strategy that I've had to use multiple times in the past, because we would go through times with my husband's job before I was working where we would go from having a fairly high paycheck to having it be the same paycheck, but we would just get moved to a much more expensive part of the country. And so all of a sudden that same paycheck did not go as far because housing cost orders of magnitude more than in the other state that we'd been stationed in. So I can tell you that doing all this automation, taking the guesswork out of it for yourself, getting your budget down on paper in black and white, and just really focusing on kind of next steps is really effective if you're feeling squeezed financially. So I wish you all the best in your financial journey. Thank you so much for being here until the very end, and I will see you again soon in my next video.